Dear learners, in this video we are going to discuss about microbial nutrition. Microbial nutrient are the substances that are acquired from the environment and used for the growth and metabolism of a microorganisms. Microbial cell composition shows that 95% of cell dry weight is made up of a few major elements which is called carbon, oxygen, hydrogen, phosphorus, magnesium, iron, like that. The nutrient are classified into two. One is macronutrient and the another one is micronutrient. Macronutrient which are required in a very large amount for the maintenance of a cell structure and metabolism. And the four different type of macronutrients are there: potassium, calcium, magnesium, and iron. That potassium required for activity by a number of enzymes, which including some of those involved in the synthesis of a protein, and the calcium which contribute to the heat resistant of a bacterial endospores, and magnesium which serve as a cofactor for many enzyme complexes with the ATP and stabilize the ribosomes and cell membrane. And in the iron as a part of a cytochrome and cofactor for enzyme and electron carrying proteins. Micronutrient or trace element. So the micronutrients are the nutrient which are required very small amount. It is helpful for the enzyme function and maintaining the protein structure. And there are four micronutrient or trace elements required for the microbial growth. They are manganese, zinc, cobalt, and molybdenum. So this manganese will aid many enzymes which is used to catalyze the transfer of phosphate groups. Zinc is present at the active site of some enzyme, but is also involved in the association of regulatory and catalytic subunit in the Escherichia coli aspartate carbamyl transferase. Cobalt, which is used for the component of a vitamin B12, and molybdenum, which require for the nitrogen fixation. Carbon requirement, beside water, one of the most important requirement for the microbial growth is carbon. The carbon is mm, structural backbone or skeleton of living matter. So it is needed for all the organic compounds which are used for the making living matter. So it is needed for all the organic compound and it contain up to 50% of the dry weight of a bacterial cell. So chemo heterotrophs get most of the carbon from the source of their energy. So the organic material such as protein, carbohydrate and lipids. So the chemoautotrope and photoautotrope drive their carbon from the carbon dioxide. Nitrogen requirement. The nitrogen requirement is very essential for the synthesis of a DNA and RNA. Also require nitrogen and some phosphorus. So the protein synthesis requires considerable amount of nitrogen as well as some sulfur. So nitrogen makes up about 14% of the dry weight of a bacterial cell. So the organism use nitrogen primarily to form the amino group of amino acid of certain proteins. So some important bacteria, including of the photosynthesis cyanobacteria, use gaseous nitrogen, so which is directly from the atmosphere. So this process, which is called as nitrogen fixation. And the next requirement will be sulfur requirement, and it is used to synthesize the sulfur containing amino acid and vitamins such as thiamine and biotin. So the important natural source of sulfur, which include the sulfate ion, hydrogen sulfide, and sulfur containing amino acid. So the protein synthesis require considerable amount of nitrogen as well as some sulfur compound. So sulfur and phosphorus together constitute about another 4% of the bacterial cell. Phosphorus requirement of microorganism. Phosphorus is essential for the synthesis of nucleic acid like DNA and RNA and the phospholipids of a cell membrane. So phosphorus is also found in the energy bond of ATP. A source of phosphorus is a phosphate ion, and sulfur and phosphorus together constitute about 4%. The next one is a growth factor. So the growth factor are required in very small amount by the bacterial cell to fulfill their specific role in the biosynthesis. So the growth factor or organic compounds like purines, pyrimidine, amino acid and vitamins that the cell must have for the growth but cannot synthesize for its own. So the growth factor are organized into three categories. One is purines and pyrimidines, which are required for the synthesis of a nucleic acids like DNA and RNA. The next one is amino acids, and it is required for the synthesis of proteins. And the third one is vitamins, which is needed as a coenzyme and functional group of a certain enzymes. Some bacteria, example Escherichia coli, do not require any growth factor. They can synthesize all essential purines, pyrimidine, amino acids, and vitamin, starting with their carbon source uh, as a part of their own intermediary metabolism. And certain other bacteria like lactobacillus, which require purine, pyrimidine, vitamin, and several amino acid in order to grow. So these compounds must be added in advance to culture media that are used to grow these bacteria. In a microorganism having complex nutritional requirement and needing many growth factor are said to be a fastidious microorganisms. Nutritional group of microorganism. This classification, which is based on the carbon source requirement. In that first one is autotrophs. Autotrophs are any organism that are capable of producing their own food. For most of this is achieved by using light energy, water and carbon dioxide, for example, algae and cyanobacteria. So all autotrophs use non-living material, that is inorganic sources, to make the food for their own. The next type is a heterotroph. So the heterotrophs are the organism that obtain their energy from the organic component and it is depend on the other substances for their food. Another type of microbial classification is based on the energy. In that first one is a phototrope. So the phototrope are organism that use light as a source of energy to produce ATP and carry out various cellular progress. And the phototrope capture light energy and convert it into a chemical energy inside the cells. So the common example include green plant, algae, cyanobacteria, purple non-sulfur bacteria, and heliobacteria. And next one is a chemotrope. So chemotrope obtain energy from the oxidation of a chemical compound, and it is either organic or inorganic compound. Chemotrope generally perform by the chemosynthesis, and common example for this is nitrosomonas and acidothioBacillus peroxidans. The next classification of a microbial nutrient is based on the electron source. So in that first one is a lithotrope. Lithotrope is nothing but the organism that uses an inorganic substances as a electron source for the biosynthesis or energy conservation via aerobic process or anaerobic process. Here the term lithotrope, which means the eater of rock. So lithotrope belong to the domain bacteria or archibacteria. So many lithotrophs are the extremophils. The another type is organotrope. So the organotrope are an organism that obtain hydrogen or electron from the organic substances. Some organotropes, such as many bacteria, are also known as heterotrope in nature. Organotrope can be either anaerobic or aerobic in nature.